Welcome back, Lincoln currency. If I handed you a small, coppery coin right now, you might glance at it for a second, roll it between your fingers, and toss it into your pocket without a thought. After all, it's just a penny, right? But what if I told you that this tiny piece of metal, barely larger than a shirt button and weighing only 2.5 grams, carried with it over a century of history, symbolism, artistry, and maybe, just maybe, a story that could turn 1 cent into something far more valuable, at least in fascination, and sometimes, under the right conditions, in dollars too. Today, we begin with one very specific coin, the 2016 D Lincoln Shield cent. Now, before you assume this is just another coin talk, I want you to imagine holding a time capsule in your palm. That's what a coin really is, something struck in a particular year, bearing marks and designs chosen with intent, passed through countless hands or kept untouched in a collector's stash. The 2016 D penny was minted in Denver, the D mint mark just under the year on its obverse. It's a tiny detail, but it tells you exactly where it was born. It's made not of solid copper, as older pennies were, but of zinc coated with a thin plating of copper, giving it that familiar reddish-brown sheen. Its diameter is precisely 19.05 millimeters, its weight 2.50 grams, its thickness 1.52 millimeters, and its edges smooth, unreeded, giving no hint from the side of the tiny portrait it carries. On the front, or obverse, you'll find the face of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, a design first introduced in 1909 by the engraver Victor David Brenner to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. It's a design that has endured through generations, shifting reverse designs but keeping Lincoln's likeness as a constant reminder of leadership and unity in a time of national division. Above him, the motto, "In God We Trust," arcs along the upper rim. To his left, the single word, liberty, is stamped, a word loaded with the ideals America holds dear. To his right, the year, 2016, is cleanly struck, with that D mint mark nestled beneath it, letting you know it came from the Denver Mint, not Philadelphia, not San Francisco, but from the Rocky Mountain State's own production facility. Flip it over and you see the reverse design, a bold Union shield with 13 vertical stripes representing the original states, capped with a horizontal bar carrying the national motto, E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one. This shield design was introduced in 2010, replacing the 4 Lincoln bicentennial reverse designs of 2009, and it symbolically ties back to Lincoln's role in preserving the Union during the Civil War. The coin's outer legend reads, United States of America. Across the top, and at the bottom, the denomination, 1 cent, is spelled out in full, rather than shown as a numeral. Billions of these coins were minted in 2016, over 4 billion in Denver alone, making it one of the most common modern coins in circulation. That abundance is what keeps most examples at face value, but here's where the intrigue begins. In a sea of billions, rare errors and unique variations can transform a humble cent into a collector's prize. Sometimes it's a double-die obverse where letters appear doubled, sometimes an off-center strike leaving part of the design missing, or a clipped planchet where the coin blank itself was imperfect before striking. While the vast majority of 2016 D pennies will never be worth more than a penny, certain mint-era examples in pristine condition have been known to sell for hundreds, sometimes even thousands, depending on the rarity and demand. And yet, stories circulate online, often exaggerated or outright mythical, about ordinary modern pennies fetching millions. While the notion of a 2016 D being worth $20 million makes for a thrilling headline, the truth lies in knowing what really drives coin value: condition, rarity, demand, and history, not just the date and mint mark. But before we get lost in market prices, we have to appreciate the artistry and symbolism here. This is more than metal, it's a narrative struck in copper. It's a reminder of Lincoln's enduring legacy, of a nation held together under unimaginable strain, and of the continuing decision to put those ideals in your hand, even in the smallest denomination. And as you hold it, you're holding the result of high-speed coining presses, copper electroplating chemistry, precision dies engraved by skilled hands, and the logistical feat of distributing billions of these little ambassadors of the mint into every corner of the country. Think about what happens to a coin after it leaves the mint. For the 2016 D penny, the journey begins in vast metal hoppers at the Denver facility, each filled with thousands of shiny, freshly struck cents. They slide and clatter down conveyors, tumbling into bags or bins, each one identical to the next. From there, they're shipped out to Federal Reserve banks, then to local banks, then to businesses, vending machines, cash registers, and eventually into your change jar or the cup holder of your car. Some will be spent 100 times over until their luster fades and their edges are worn smooth. Others might be tucked away immediately by coin collectors who want an uncirculated example with that bright, red copper glow, never to be touched again without gloves. The Denver Mint itself is a marvel of modern production, churning out coins at incredible speeds, hundreds of strikes per minute, yet with remarkable precision. The dies that strike these pennies are cut with exacting detail so that Lincoln's hair, the folds of his coat, and even the texture in the shield stripes are crisply defined under magnification. When you pick up a fresh 2016 D cent and tilt it under the light, you can see how those tiny grooves catch and reflect it, almost like miniature engraving lines in a piece of fine art. That's because, in a way, these coins are art, mass-produced, yes, but still the product of a sculptor's hand. Even though Victor David Brenner died decades ago, his Lincoln portrait has endured, with only slight modifications over time. The reverse's Union Shield design came from Lyndall Bass, a contemporary designer, with the sculpting done by Joseph Mena. This blending of historical and modern artistry is one of the more overlooked aspects of coinage. People notice the design, but rarely think about the fact that someone, somewhere, actually created it, chiseling out lines, shaping features, and deciding exactly how those symbols would be presented to the public. Now, in the collector's world, the 2016 D penny story becomes interesting because of how value is determined. Imagine two coins, both minted in 2016, both from Denver, both stored away for years. One is pristine, never touched by human skin, perfectly struck, no spots or blemishes. This is what collectors call MS-70. If it's absolutely flawless, or perhaps MS-69, if there's a nearly imperceptible flaw under a loop. The other coin might have tiny scratches from circulation, maybe some dirt in the lettering, perhaps a duller tone from oxidation. This one might only be MS-60, or lower. The first coin could fetch several dollars, maybe even more if the right buyer wants it. The second is worth a cent. And then there are the famous error coins. Let's say a 2016 D penny somehow left the mint with a double date, where 2016 looks like it's been struck twice slightly offset. This is a double die error, and if dramatic enough, could be worth dozens or even hundreds of dollars. Or imagine a penny struck off-center, leaving a crescent of blank planchet visible. Error collectors love those, and depending on the percentage of the off-center strike, the value climbs. There are even more exotic mistakes, coins struck on the wrong planchet entirely, like a penny struck on a dime blank, giving it a silver-colored look and slightly smaller diameter. These are rare, but they do exist, and when they do, they can turn an ordinary cent into something highly sought after. This is where the myth of the $20 million penny comes in. Every few months, articles and videos circulate claiming that a common modern penny, sometimes a 2016 D, has sold for astronomical sums. The reality is more nuanced. Yes, some rare coins have sold for millions, like the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar or the 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle, but those are historic, scarce, and made of precious metals. No regular 2016 D penny has ever commanded such a price. What does happen, though, is that unusual specimens with extreme mint errors can surprise everyone at auction, selling for many times their face value. But 20 million? That's fiction, unless you count the emotional or symbolic value someone assigns to it. And yet, there's a strange kind of magic in that fiction. It makes people look at their change differently. Suddenly, that coin jar in the kitchen isn't just loose change, it's a treasure chest waiting to be sorted through. People start turning pennies over, checking for double dies, unusual markings, odd colors. Some might even dig out magnifying glasses and start reading about grading scales and mint history. And in doing so, they connect to a tradition as old as coin collecting itself, which stretches back thousands of years to ancient civilizations that prized certain coins not just for their monetary value, but for their craftsmanship and rarity. In the end, whether your 2016 D penny is worth 1 cent or $100, it represents a link between you and the vast, intricate machinery of history, economics, and design. That's why collectors talk about coins as if they're living objects. They circulate, they wear down, they disappear, they resurface decades later in attic boxes or estate sales. Every coin has a story, and the 2016 D Lincoln Shield cent is no exception. To truly understand the 2016 D penny, you have to travel back more than a century, to 1909, when Abraham Lincoln's face first appeared on a U.S. coin. Before that, no real person had ever been featured on American coinage, only allegorical figures like Liberty. But 1909 marked the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, and the U.S. Mint decided it was time to honor him with a portrait on the 1-cent piece. Victor David Brenner, a Lithuanian-born sculptor, was chosen to design it. His Lincoln portrait, based on photographs and life masks, captured the president's thoughtful gaze and strong features, and it became an instant icon. On the reverse, his original design featured 2 wheat stalks curving around the words, 1 cent, and United States of America, which is why collectors now call those coins wheat cents. For 50 years, from 1909 to 1958, those wheat stalks were the backdrop to Lincoln's portrait. Then, in 1959, the Mint redesigned the reverse to feature the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., commemorating the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. That design, with its clean lines and classical architecture, lasted until 2008. But the story doesn't end there. In 2009, the Mint celebrated Lincoln's bicentennial with 4 different reverse designs, each representing a stage of his life: his humble log cabin birth in Kentucky, his formative years in Indiana, his professional life in Illinois, and his presidency in Washington, D.C. These designs were only struck for 1 year, making them special among modern pennies. Then, in 2010, the Mint introduced the Union Shield design we see on the 2016 D penny. 13 vertical stripes stand for the original colonies, joined under a horizontal bar that symbolizes federal unity. Across that bar is E pluribus unum, a motto that traces back to the nation's earliest days, meaning out of many, one. It's a powerful reminder of what Lincoln fought to preserve. The choice of the shield was deliberate, a nod to Lincoln's role as the leader who kept the states united through the Civil War. The artistry of this design reflects both modern sensibilities and historic symbolism. The composition of the penny has also evolved. From 1909 to 1942, they were mostly copper, with a small amount of tin and zinc. In 1943, during World War II, copper was needed for ammunition, so the Mint produced pennies from zinc-coated steel, giving them a silvery appearance. These steels since corroded easily and were unpopular, so copper returned in 1944. By 1982, rising copper prices made it too expensive to keep using solid copper. The Mint switched to copper-plated zinc, 97.5% zinc with a 2.5% copper coating, the same composition used in the 2016 D. This change meant pennies were cheaper to produce, at least for a time, but even now, it costs more than 1 cent to make a cent. The irony isn't lost on economists. Billions of coins produced each year at a loss to the Treasury, a situation that has fueled debates over whether the penny should be retired entirely. That debate has intensified in recent years, with Canada having eliminated its penny in 2012, and other countries following suit. The US still makes them, but announcements in the mid-2020s have indicated that production may stop by 2026. If that happens, coins like the 2016 D will suddenly become part of a closed chapter in US currency history, not rare in the sense of being hard to find immediately, but finite in supply, with no new ones entering circulation. Over time, attrition will slowly thin their numbers, and pristine examples will be harder to come by. This is where history and collector psychology intersect. Right now, a 2016 D penny is common, But a century from now, it could be as interesting to collectors as a 1916 wheat cent is today. That's the strange alchemy of numismatics. Time transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. And if you think about the physical journey of a single coin over decades, passing through countless hands, surviving recessions, inflation, changes in technology, even political shifts, it becomes more than a unit of currency. It becomes a witness to history. The penny in your pocket could have been given as change in a corner store, slipped into a tip jar, pressed into a child's hand as part of an allowance, or accidentally dropped between couch cushions and forgotten for years. Some pennies have been buried in the ground, lost until a metal detectorist finds them decades later, dirt-stained but still recognizable. Others have been encased in plastic holders by grading services, preserved in near-perfect condition for generations. And somewhere, in the vast sea of 2016 pennies, there may be a few with minting quirks so unusual that collectors would pay handsomely to own them, not $20 million, but perhaps hundreds or thousands. Those coins are the outliers, the ones that make the hunt exciting. For most people, though, the 2016 is a reminder of something much simpler, that history, art, economics, and human stories can fit into something as small as a penny. When people first hear about rare pennies worth thousands of dollars, their imaginations run wild. Suddenly every coin in their pocket becomes a potential lottery ticket. And in a way, that's the magic of these stories. They spark curiosity. But to separate myth from reality, we need to look at what really makes certain 2016 pennies more valuable than others. It almost always comes down to one of two things: condition or error. Condition, in numismatic terms, is described with the Sheldon grading scale, which runs from 1 to 70. A coin graded 1 is so worn that it's barely identifiable, while a 70 is a perfect specimen with no flaws under 5x magnification. Most coins in circulation fall somewhere in the middle, maybe VF, very fine, XF, extremely fine, or AU, almost uncirculated. But the gems, the coins that collectors will pay premiums for, are mint state 67, 68, even 69. With modern coins like the 2016 finding such high grades can be surprisingly difficult, because even fresh from the mint, coins can get tiny nicks from colliding with each other in bulk handling. That's why some people order entire rolls or bags of coins directly from banks, carefully sorting through hundreds or thousands to find the best examples to send off to professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. Then there are the mint errors, which can be far more exciting. Imagine a 2016 penny that was struck slightly off-center. Maybe 15% or 20% of the design is missing, leaving a crescent of blank copper-plated zinc. Error collectors prize those because they show a rare departure from the mint's usual precision. Or picture a double strike, where the coin wasn't ejected properly after the first strike and was hit again by the dies, creating a ghosted second image over the first. Sometimes the error is subtle, like a die crack, thin raised lines on the coin where the die itself began to fracture. Other times it's dramatic, such as a missing clad layer, where the copper coating didn't fully cover the zinc core, leaving silvery patches visible. These errors are scarce because quality control at the mint is extremely tight, but given the billions of coins produced, a handful inevitably slip through. It's those few that can turn heads at auctions. For example, an off-center 2016 penny in superb uncirculated condition might fetch $50 or $100 to the right buyer. A doubled die with strong, clear doubling in the date or lettering could go higher. Coins struck on the wrong planchet, say, a dime or foreign coin blank, are even more valuable, sometimes reaching into the hundreds or low thousands depending on the error's visibility and rarity. This is a far cry from the fantastical $20 million claims you see online, but it's still a dramatic leap from face value. So why do these exaggerated price tags keep appearing in videos and articles? Part of it is misunderstanding. People see a rare coin sell for a high price and assume any coin of that type is automatically worth the same. Another part is marketing. Big numbers grab attention and get clicks. And a small part is wishful thinking. Viewers want to believe that a fortune might be sitting in their change jar. But in truth, numismatics is a blend of art appreciation, historical preservation, and detective work. The hunt for valuable coins is less about instant riches and more about the satisfaction of discovering something unusual. Think of it like fishing. Most days you'll pull in the usual catch, but every so often, you hook something rare, and that's what keeps you coming back. The irony is that many of the most valuable coins today were saved not because someone thought they'd be worth money, but because they were set aside out of simple admiration for their beauty or curiosity about their differences. That's why, even though most 2016 D pennies are still just worth a cent, the idea of checking them all becomes so tempting. Each coin you examine is like opening a tiny mystery box. You might find nothing unusual, or you might find a small imperfection that turns out to be a sought-after error. Even if you don't, you come away with a deeper appreciation for the designs, the textures, and the craftsmanship involved. And over time, those moments of appreciation can lead to building a personal collection, one that tells a story not only about U.S. history, but also about your own journey as a collector. You might start with a handful of coins from pocket change, then add coins found at flea markets, coin shows, or inherited from relatives. Each one becomes a marker in time. And who knows, maybe one day, a future collector will hold your preserved 2016 D penny, marvel at its condition, and feel the same spark of curiosity you're feeling now. That's how coins pass down their stories, not in million-dollar auctions, but in the quiet continuity of hands, eyes, and minds that see value in the smallest details. To understand the 2016 D penny fully, it helps to picture the moment it's born. At the Denver Mint, everything begins with blank discs of metal called planchets. For pennies, these start as pure zinc rounds, each one the right size and weight but completely featureless, like tiny silver-colored tokens. They're then sent through an electroplating process where a thin layer of copper coats their surface, giving them the familiar reddish color. This copper layer is only microns thick, but it's enough to provide the look and feel people expect when they see a U.S. cent. Once plated, the planchets are washed, dried, and carefully inspected. Then they're fed into massive, high-speed coining presses. These presses are truly remarkable, capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute with precise force and timing. Inside, each planchet is placed between two steel dies, one for the obverse, bearing Lincoln's portrait, and one for the reverse, with the Union Shield design. The dies are cut with microscopic detail, and when the press slams down with around 50 tons of pressure, those details are driven into the soft metal surface in a single, crisp impression. The edges are formed at the same time, leaving them smooth and unreeded. As the coins emerge, they fall into bins or hoppers, thousands at a time, still warm from the friction and pressure of the strike. This is where the first potential for mint errors can occur. Even with advanced machinery, a die might become slightly misaligned, a planchet might be improperly fed, or debris might be caught between the die and planchet, creating a struck-through error. If a planchet is missing its copper layer in one spot, the zinc beneath will show through as a silvery patch, instantly making it stand out to a sharp-eyed collector. Quality control is strict. Mint employees check samples regularly, looking for any issues. But given the sheer scale of production, some errors slip through unnoticed. From there, the coins are counted, bagged in huge quantities, and prepared for shipment. Large canvas bags, sometimes holding millions of pennies, are loaded onto pallets and sent to Federal Reserve banks, which then distribute them to commercial banks. By the time a 2016 D penny reaches your pocket, it's already been through a journey of industrial precision and logistical coordination that most people never think about. What's fascinating is that, despite the technological sophistication, the basic process of striking coins hasn't changed much in centuries. Only the speed, accuracy, and volume have improved. The dies are still engraved designs pressed into metal. The goal is still the same: to produce uniform, recognizable currency that can stand up to years of use. Yet, in that sameness lies the potential for the unexpected. A single small flaw, one misfeed, one crack in a die, one skipped quality check, can create a coin that's unique among billions. And that's why people keep looking. It's the possibility that the next penny you glance at might be unlike any other in circulation. For the 2016 D, Those rare differences could be a major off-center strike, a dramatic die clash where parts of the design are imprinted on the wrong side, or a double denomination error where the coin was struck on a blank intended for another coin type. The Denver Mint has produced countless flawless coins, but it has also been the birthplace of some of the most interesting modern errors, and that adds to the allure of hunting through even the most common dates. Every coin in your hand has passed through an extraordinary mechanical process, traveled across states, and likely changed hands dozens of times. When you think about it that way, the 2016 D penny is less a disposable piece of currency and more a small, mass-produced artifact, one that holds the story of its creation, its journey, and perhaps even a hidden quirk that makes it stand out from all the rest. There's something deeply human about the urge to search through pocket change, looking for that one coin that might be special. It's a mix of curiosity, hope, and a little bit of adventure. For some, the 2016 D penny is just another date, one of billions. But for others, it's a potential prize, a small part of a larger puzzle they've been working on for years. Coin hunting often starts casually. Maybe you hear a story about a rare penny selling for hundreds of dollars, and you decide to check the ones lying around your house. You look for odd colors, unusual marks, or doubled letters. At first, it's just a small diversion, something to pass the time. But then you learn about mint marks, and how the D beneath the date means Denver, while a P means Philadelphia, and S means San Francisco. You learn about the differences between proof coins and regular strikes, and about the grading scale that separates ordinary coins from collector-grade gems. Before long, you're buying rolls of pennies from the bank, carefully opening them and inspecting each one with a magnifying glass. You find yourself reading about die varieties, studying photographs of errors, and memorizing which dates are worth a second look. The 2016 D becomes one of those dates you scan for automatically, because you know there's a slim chance one could have an error or be in such pristine condition that it's worth sending off to be graded. This process of searching becomes addictive because it taps into the same reward system that drives treasure hunters, lottery players, and even archaeologists. Most of the time, you find nothing out of the ordinary, but every so often, you spot something unusual, a small die chip, a bit of doubling, or a coin with perfect, untouched surfaces. That little thrill keeps you coming back. And unlike many hobbies, coin searching doesn't require a big upfront investment. You can start with the change you already have. Over time, though, collectors often find themselves drawn deeper. They might start keeping a log of the coins they found, tracking which banks tend to have fresher rolls, learning how to recognize different kinds of toning on copper surfaces. They begin to see coins not just as currency, but as miniature works of art, each carrying a story about the year it was made, the people who designed it, and the history it has witnessed. The 2016 D penny fits neatly into this culture of collecting because it's common enough to be found in circulation, but recent enough that pristine examples still turn up. It's also part of the Modern Union Shield series, which some collectors are building complete sets of by date and mint mark. For a beginner, it's a great coin to practice grading skills on, looking at luster, strike quality, and contact marks. For more advanced collectors, the real draw is in finding high-grade examples or rare errors that stand out from the billions of ordinary strikes. And beyond all of that, there's the simple pleasure of discovery. Every time you flip over a penny and see Lincoln's face, you're looking at more than just a monetary token. You're seeing a design that's been part of American life for over a century, one that has survived wars, economic shifts, and changes in technology. You're holding something that's been touched by countless hands, traveled across cities, and maybe even crossed borders. It's easy to take something so small for granted, but when you pause and really look at it, the way the light catches the copper, the precision of the lettering, the symbolism of the shield, you start to understand why people can spend a lifetime collecting coins. The 2016 D might not make you a millionaire, but it can open the door to a hobby that offers endless opportunities for learning, connection, and surprise. And for many collectors, that's worth more than any single coin's market value. Abraham Lincoln's presence on the penny is more than just a design choice, it's a statement. When his portrait first appeared in 1909, It broke with a long-standing tradition of using only symbolic figures on U.S. coins. Up until then, Lady Liberty eagles and other allegorical imagery filled the designs, meant to represent ideals rather than real individuals. Lincoln was the first real person to appear, and that choice was deliberate. He wasn't just any president, he was the one who had guided the nation through its most dangerous fracture, preserving the Union at unimaginable cost. The penny became, in a way, a tiny memorial you could carry in your pocket. That symbolism has carried through every design change since, from the wheat stalk reverse to the Lincoln Memorial and now the Union Shield. Even in 2016, more than 150 years after his presidency, Lincoln's image still commands respect. Look closely at the details of his portrait on the 2016 D penny. The sculpting captures not just a likeness, but an expression, one of quiet determination, the deep lines in his face hinting at the weight of leadership. It's not a glamorous portrait, it's a human one, and perhaps that's why it resonates so strongly. On the reverse, the Union Shield reinforces that same theme. Its 13 vertical stripes stand as a reminder of the original colonies, bound together under a single horizontal bar, symbolizing unity. Across that bar is the Latin phrase, E pluribus unum, which has appeared on U.S. coins for over 200 years. Translated as, out of many one. It's a motto that mirrors Lincoln's role in holding the states together during the Civil War. The combination of Lincoln's face and the Union Shield turns the penny into something more than a monetary unit. It's a story pressed into metal, a story of unity, sacrifice, and the enduring idea that a nation's strength comes from its ability to remain whole. This symbolic weight is part of why so many people feel an attachment to the penny, even in an age where it's often dismissed as economically impractical. It's easy to argue about its cost to produce or its declining purchasing power, but when you hold a 2016 D and see Lincoln's steady gaze, you're reminded that this coin is also a piece of cultural heritage. That heritage matters to collectors, historians, and ordinary people alike. For a collector, the 2016 D isn't just a common date, it's one part of a chain stretching back over a century, linking every Lincoln cent ever made. For a historian, it's an artifact of a particular moment in time, 2016, when the world looked a certain way, technology was at a certain stage, and the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins despite ongoing debates about their future. And for someone who doesn't think about coins much at all, it's still a familiar presence, a copper flash in a handful of change, a reminder of something steady in a fast-changing world. That's part of the magic of coins. They're at once ordinary and extraordinary. They pass through hands without notice, yet each one has a history, a design born from intention, and a meaning that can be as personal as it is national. The 2016 D penny, like all Lincoln cents, carries Lincoln's legacy in miniature, keeping his image alive in everyday commerce. It's this quiet, almost invisible cultural work that gives even the most common coin a kind of dignity. And while most of them will live out their days in circulation, worn smooth over decades, some will be pulled aside, protected, and treasured, not because they're worth millions, but because they're worth remembering. Most people don't realize that coins, like all things, have a life cycle. A 2016 D penny begins bright and crisp, fresh from the Denver Mint, edges sharp and color rich. In its first days, it moves quickly, rolled into bank wrappers, handed out as change at a convenience store, perhaps dropped into a tip jar. From there it might pass through dozens of hands in a single week, a constant traveler in pockets, cash registers, and coin trays. Over time, circulation takes its toll. Tiny nicks appear where it clinks against other coins. The copper plating starts to lose its fresh glow, darkening with exposure to air and oils from human skin. Some pennies might develop a warm brown patina, others turn spotty or dull. Still, they do their job, moving from one transaction to the next. The U.S. Mint estimates that the average penny remains in circulation for around 25 years before it's too worn to use, though many disappear long before that, lost between couch cushions, buried in backyards, tossed into fountains, or forgotten in old jars. When pennies get too worn, banks send them to the Federal Reserve, which in turn returns them to the Mint for destruction. There, they're shredded or melted, and the metal is recycled. New pennies are struck to replace them, keeping the supply constant. For a 2016 D, this means that in the years ahead, many will vanish quietly from circulation, replaced by newer dates, their individual journeys ended. Yet even as billions circulate, their overall economic role is shrinking. The penny's purchasing power has eroded dramatically. In Lincoln's day, a cent could buy a newspaper or a loaf of bread. In 2016, it could barely cover a few seconds of parking meter time, and today it's mostly used for making change in cash transactions. Many people don't bother to spend them at all, tossing them into containers to accumulate dust. This is part of why debates over eliminating the penny have gained traction. In countries like Canada, the smallest coin in everyday use is worth about the equivalent of a US nickel. Eliminating the penny would mean rounding transactions to the nearest 5 cents, simplifying cash payments. But such a move would also end the active life of coins like the 2016 D, pushing them into a more historical role. Collectors understand that once a coin's production stops, its fate changes. No more will be minted. The supply will only decline as coins wear out or are lost. Over decades, this scarcity can increase interest, even for dates that once seemed ordinary. If the penny is retired in the near future, every surviving 2016 D will suddenly be a piece of a closed series, making it more attractive to those who collect by type or by year. It's not that they'll become instantly valuable in a financial sense. Billions will still exist, but they'll carry the quiet prestige of being part of something finished. There's a kind of poetry in that. A coin that began as the smallest denomination in everyday commerce becoming, over time, a silent ambassador of a bygone era of cash. Even now, if you stop and think about where a single 2016 D penny has been, it's humbling. Maybe it bought part of a child's ice cream cone, paid a fraction of a bus fare, or was tossed into a charity jar to help fund a cause. Perhaps it traveled across the country in the pocket of a student moving to a new city, or sat in a store register through holiday seasons and summer rushes. Each penny carries countless unseen transactions and anonymous stories. When it finally leaves circulation, it takes those stories with it. And somewhere, maybe in a collector's album or tucked away in a small box, a few pristine 2016 D pennies will rest untouched, waiting for a future generation to rediscover them. By then, they won't just be coins. They'll be relics of a time when a piece of copper-plated zinc could still pass from hand to hand, quietly connecting people in the simplest act of exchange. When you start to see the 2016 D penny not just as an isolated piece of US currency but as part of a global tradition of small denomination coins, its place in history becomes even more intriguing. Around the world, every nation has faced the same basic question: what's the smallest coin worth making? In some places, inflation has rendered small coins obsolete, and governments have simply stopped minting them. In others, tradition and public sentiment keep them alive, even if their practical value is negligible. Canada, for instance, stopped producing its 1-cent coin in 2012, citing the high cost of production and the inconvenience of handling such a low-value piece. Transactions in cash are now rounded to the nearest 5 cents, though electronic payments still charge the exact amount. Australia and New Zealand made similar moves decades earlier, phasing out their 1 and 2 cent coins in the early 1990s. In Europe, the smallest euro coins, 1 cent and 2 cents, are still officially in circulation, but several countries have adopted rounding rules that make them rare in everyday transactions. The United States stands out for keeping its penny in active production, and the 2016 D is a product of that persistence. That decision is partly driven by public attachment. Surveys have shown that many Americans want to keep the penny, not because they use it often, but because it feels wrong to abandon such a long-standing part of the nation's identity. The Lincoln cent has been in circulation for over a century, and people associate it with history, tradition, and a kind of nostalgic patriotism. There's also a practical reason. The US has a pricing culture that often relies on endings like 99 cents or $1.99, and the penny makes those amounts exact in cash transactions. Removing it would require widespread changes in pricing strategies, and large retailers have mixed feelings about that. For the 2016 D penny, this context means it's part of a broader, somewhat stubborn resistance to change. It's not just a coin, it's a cultural statement that the smallest unit still matters, even if its purchasing power has faded. When you compare it to coins from other countries, the differences in size, weight, and composition stand out. Many nations make their smallest coins from lightweight aluminum or other inexpensive materials, while the US penny, even in its modern zinc core form, feels more substantial. At 2.5 grams, it has a satisfying density that gives it a sense of permanence, a reminder of its origins when coins were made almost entirely of copper. That heft, combined with the familiar color, makes it instantly recognizable worldwide. Travelers often take pennies home as souvenirs, even if they have little use for them. The 2016 D might end up in a jar on a desk in Japan, a coin collection in Germany, or a child's pocket in South Africa, carried simply because it's American. And that's another fascinating aspect of coins like this: their ability to travel far beyond the borders where they were minted. U.S. coins circulate informally in many places outside the country, often turning up in markets or mixed into local currency drawers. In those contexts, the penny is no longer about buying power, it's about curiosity, novelty, and the quiet prestige of holding something foreign. The global view also helps you see why certain coins gain unexpected fame. If the US were ever to stop producing the penny, coins like the 2016 D would instantly shift from common change to small relics of an era, just as pre-decimal British coins became prized keepsakes after the UK switched to decimal currency in 1971. Over time, even ordinary examples would become harder to find, and pristine mint-state coins could climb steadily in collector value. That's how an object once worth 1 cent can, in the right conditions, transform into something that inspires treasure hunts, auction bidding wars, and stories passed from one generation to the next. What truly separates a regular 2016 D penny from one that commands serious collector attention is condition. In the world of numismatics, grading isn't just about saying, "This coin looks nice," or "This one's a little worn." It's a precise, standardized process that examines every detail, from luster to strike quality, under magnification. The Sheldon coin grading scale, which runs from 1 to 70, is the most widely used system. A coin graded MS-70, mint state, perfect condition, has no post-mint marks visible under 5x magnification. That's the holy grail for collectors, especially for modern coins that are otherwise common. Most 2016 D pennies in circulation would fall somewhere in the range of VF, very fine, to AU, about uncirculated, showing light to moderate wear. Even freshly minted coins from rolls might have tiny bag marks or contact scratches from the minting and shipping process, which keep them from achieving a perfect grade. But every once in a while, a coin emerges in flawless condition, often because it was set aside at the very moment it left the mint, stored carefully, and never touched by bare hands. Such a coin doesn't just stand out, it can multiply its value dramatically. For the 2016 D, a perfect MS-70 example certified by a respected grading service like PCGS or NGC could fetch hundreds or even thousands of dollars from dedicated registry set collectors. And in rare cases, if there's something extra, an unusual mint error, a doubled die, an off-center strike, that value can skyrocket. Mint errors, especially dramatic ones, are like lightning strikes in the hobby, incredibly rare, but unforgettable when they appear. Imagine a 2016 D penny with a perfectly bold doubled date, or a striking misalignment that leaves part of the design missing. Such a coin could become famous almost overnight, drawing the attention of both collectors and media outlets. This is how stories start about ordinary coins suddenly worth life-changing sums, though in reality, those finds are the exception, not the rule. Still, the possibility is enough to keep people checking their change. Beyond condition and rarity, a coin's value is also shaped by the narratives attached to it. If a particular 2016 D penny were proven to have belonged to a notable figure, or was recovered from a unique historical context, its worth could leap well beyond its face value. Provenance, the record of a coin's history, can be as compelling to collectors as the coin itself. That's part of the enduring appeal of coin collecting. it blends the tangible precision of metal and minting with the intangible pull of story and connection. And in that way, even a humble penny can become something much larger. The 2016 D. Lincoln cent isn't just a sliver of copper-plated zinc. It's a continuation of a design lineage that began in 1909, a physical link to the presidency of Abraham Lincoln, and a tiny ambassador of American culture and history. It has traveled in pockets, sat in jars, been tossed into fountains for wishes, and slipped into the hands of children counting their allowance. For some, it's just a coin. For others, it's a symbol of continuity in a world that changes too fast. And maybe that's why, even if its face value will never buy more than a fraction of a candy bar, its real worth lies in the human tendency to preserve, remember, and find meaning in small things. Whether it ends up as common change, a cherished keepsake, or a star of a coin auction, the 2016 D penny has already fulfilled its quiet purpose, connecting moments, places, and people, 1 cent at a time.